And we are live. So, this is going to be an extremely quick stream, and I'm going to throw this on YouTube. This is in regards to a ton of people asking me in regards to settings in Splitgate. And I figured the best way to do this would be to just go through it and explain the reasoning behind my settings, as well as common settings. So, first things first, display mode, I would highly recommend full screen. Windows borderless and adds additional latency on top, which you do not want. So definitely do full screen. Resolution should be your monitor native. I'm 1080p, which is 1920 by 1080. Resolution scale should always be 100 unless you are just unable to run the game at 100 resolution scale, which would be pretty bad. So definitely going over is overkill. You might be able to reduce anti-aliasing on it, but I wouldn't recommend it. FOV is your field of view. Lowest in this being, I need to actually take a look here, 80 to 103. I think console default is 80. I think PC default is 90 with a maximum of 103. FOV should definitely be max if you're comfortable with it. You can, do reductions. So there's people that do 96, and you can do 90. I've actually run tourneys that have won at 90 FOV, but you need to keep in mind that in this game, the wider your FOV is, the more that you can see, and that's particularly important not only for seeing enemies out of the corner of your screen, but also for portal walls and recognizing different routes that you can take. That larger FOV will help you learn quickly. Frame rate limit should be whatever your system can run at comfortably. So 240 frames obviously would be ideal. But if your CPU is maxed out, like say you're bouncing at 200 frames over and over again, you can't hit 240, your latency from that constantly being maxed out is going to be higher than if you had it capped at say 180. So basically make sure that your frame rate is stable. If it's not, lower that number. Not using VSync, I would have this checked if I was using my G-Sync at 360 hertz. Just because you don't want to exceed it, that's its own conversation. But from people that are way smarter than me on Blur Buster, having VSync with G-Sync is the way to do it, and you lock in your frame rate below your maximum frame rate of your monitor. So I have a 360 hertz monitor. I would lock 350 if that was possible. This max is 240. You can actually go into the config and raise it past this point, but that's not supported. So if you run into any issues, you're on your own. These are my settings here. View distance, I keep epic. Post-processing, I have set to medium. Shadows, it looks like I left at epic. Textures, epic. And then I have effects low. Anti-aliasing low. I don't like the blur that's introduced if you have anything higher than low. Portal quality and frame rate is epic. You want your portals to be as crisp and clear as possible because you're going to be shooting through them, and you want that, to be able to see. I don't use any colorblind settings. I am a mouse and keyboard player. I highly recommend turning off blood. Blood gets in the way when you're shooting an enemy, so it's just visual clutter. So I would highly recommend turning that off. Horizontal sensitivity. So this is going to be personal preference, and I know a lot of people just like to copy numbers here. I use 1.903, which translates to a 28 centimeter 360. This is actually a sense that I'm experimenting with and I'm having fun with. Typically, I would be running 1.065, which is actually a 50 centimeter, which is actually very slow compared to most people, but I felt very comfortable with it. My accuracy was insane on it. My accuracy in the community is known for being on point, and that came with me using a more tactical sense. Zoom sense scale, I highly recommend doing 1-to-1 with carbine is what I'm comfortable with, and that's what I tell people to do. So 0.78 at 103 FOV is 1-to-1. I don't use any of this. Inverted would be crazy to me. Mouse smoothing will make it so you can't do, precision. This is all personal preference. Key bindings. The only thing I can think that is different for me is you have your portal movements here for shooting left portal and right portal. I don't use Q&E. Q&E is a default, and people are successful with it. I know DJ99 does races with it, and he's fairly fast with it. A lot of the people in the pro scene use your side mouse buttons. The current mouse that I'm using actually doesn't have side mouse buttons, so I'm actually part of the scroll wheel gang, where scroll wheel forward and backwards is how I do this. So I highly recommend that. I don't think anything else is different here. I find it interesting. I actually just realized I have mouse wheel up twice. Need to see if I can fix that. I don't use controller, so that's all of that. Audio settings. For the most part, I just have the gameplay volume. I have the music and other things turned down. It's just personal preference, just audio clutter. This is all default for that. UI settings, I show FPS. Some people use show subtitles, which is pretty handy for like seeing on the bottom of the screen key events that are going on. I personally don't use it. I like showing damage numbers. I like having that low ammo warning. Appreciate the follow. Crosshair color, I typically use yellow, and then for enemy crosshair color, I use green. The default in Splitgate was red, but I switched to green because you're looking at green versus red. It's just a better color contrast, and it's easier for me to shoot on targets and be tracking that. Crosshairs, this can be personal preference, but generally you want to go with the smallest size that you have, but you want to also still be able to track it accordingly. In Splitgate, keep in mind that when you're aiming through an enemy portal, you need to also be able to register the color change on it. So I think dot for me is visually too small, so I use crosshair small for most of my key weapons. Anything that has a large spread, so the plasma, the shotgun, I use the larger. The only exception is the sniper rifle. The default, how this works is if your sniper is zoomed in, this is your headshot size. If it's not zoomed in, this is your reticle. And I find that if I'm hip firing a sniper quite often with default, I'm missing a lot because of this large circle. So I just use crosshair small. That should be it for all my settings I can think of. So I'll probably go ahead and shut this down. The wait time to answer your question is over an hour right now for most people. So, yeah, that's all I got. I hope you guys enjoyed me going over settings, and I'll throw this up on YouTube as well for people that are asking that. That's it. Thanks for watching.